Hey, what's up, everybody? This is going to be the top 10 things that nobody tells you when you start grad school. So, just a little bit of background on myself before we get started. I am a third year PhD student here at Stony Brook University. I am in the chemistry department. I work on materials science and basically coming up with materials that are used in batteries and water splitting, other things like that, alternative energy applications. I also work a little bit at Brookhaven National Laboratory. So now that you have a little bit of a sense of my background, let's get into my top things that nobody tells you about grad school that you need to know before you start. The first thing is that if you do choose to go to a state school that is not in your state, for me, I'm from Pennsylvania, and I had to move up here to New York to go to this school, you are going to actually have to change your residence. So that is a whole legal process. You need to get a driver's license in the state that you go to. You need to make sure that all of your tax information is transferred from your home state to this new state. And basically, if you don't have insurance, you're going to need to buy that. You're going to need to get everything moved from your state to this new state. So that's a huge thing that nobody told me when I was starting out, and I think that it's one of the most important things for you guys to understand when you're actually making this decision. The next thing on my list is that you need to make sure that you know what the public transportation system is like before you get to the university. So here on Long Island, there is basically nothing. You have the Long Island Railroad, which goes from New York City all the way up to, I think, West Hampton or something like that. But that's pretty much it. There's a couple of buses that run around, but they're not regular. So if you need to get to the grocery store or other things like that, or you want to just explore, you're pretty much stuck walking or biking unless you have a car. So if you do have a car, make sure that, again, as with my first point, you transfer the license and registration and all of that to the state that you're moving to. But once you have that taken care of, you should be good to go. If you don't have a car, like I said, looking at all of the public transportation options is going to be very essential, and you are going to want to know that going in, especially if you're in science, because if you are in science, you're going to be doing a lot of experiments, sometimes at institutions that are not your own. You may need to be there at very wild hours, and even then, if you need to be there at crazy hours, public transportation isn't going to help. You definitely need a car. So if you are planning on moving somewhere like here or somewhere else that doesn't have very good, reliable public transportation, make sure that you have it in your mind to budget for a car to get it as soon as you can. Number 3, when you move into your housing, this can vary depending on what you choose to go with. For me, I live in on-campus housing, which is pretty annoying, if I'm completely honest. The rules are pretty crazy and not at all what I was expecting. So I came from Muhlenberg College, which is a pretty high-end, pretty fancy type of undergrad institution, and they really didn't have many rules about what you could and couldn't have inside of your room. Here at Stony Brook, though, it's a state school. It's bound by all of the state regulations, and there's a lot. So make sure that you understand all of the rules and regulations about what you can and can't have, and make your decision based on that, because here there's no air conditioning. It gets really hot and really muggy, and you can't have a personal air conditioner. So that is something that is a huge consideration for you, for your comfort, because you're going to be working a lot, and you are going to want to enjoy any time that you get to relax. And if you have to fight with yourself to live in the environment that you chose to live in, that's just going to make your experience that much worse. All right, now number 4, if you live in on-campus housing, make sure that you are preparing yourself to be woken up at odd hours of the day by fire alarms. So these are things that you are probably pretty used to if you grew up in an undergrad institution as a resident there. If you lived on campus, you probably have some experience with this, but in grad school it's kind of going to be amplified because you're going to be working way more than you did in undergrad, and it's going to be extremely frustrating when these types of things happen. So just be aware of that and be prepared. Number 5, if you live in on-campus housing and you don't have a car, make sure that you use my referral down in the description below. This is going to be for a service called Instacart. This is by far the best service that I've found for getting groceries to me at a reasonable price from all of the grocery stores and supermarkets, wholesale clubs, etc. around me. This is going to be a lifesaver because if you need something, you can get it and it's not going to be crazy. I suggest getting the Instacart Plus service so that way you get free delivery on orders over $35 since most of your orders are going to be over that threshold. It's also really important to note that if you move into on-campus housing, unlike when you were an undergrad and the school supplied things like toilet paper and paper towels and other things like that, you are not going to get any of that here. You need to have your own soap, you need to have your own toilet paper. Everything that you would use normally, you are going to need to supply yourself. So definitely make sure that you check out the link in the description to sign up for Instacart when you're on campus, so that way you can supply yourself even if you don't have a car. Number 6, this is a huge one for me. Make sure that you have a reliable support system for whatever it is that you're doing. If you're in STEM, if you're in arts, if you're in business, if you are getting a PhD in history, anything that you want to get a PhD in, make sure that you have a support system that is reliable and dependable. This could be your parents, this could be grandparents, friends, whatever it is, make sure that you have this in place because it could be the difference between you getting out with that PhD or you just dropping out because it's too hard. This is a really difficult process to navigate. It's going to be something that will test you on every single level. And if you don't have a support system already, or you don't have a mentor, make sure that you get that right now before you start, so that way you have that assurance going into this. Now, number 7, when you start at grad school, you're going to be introduced to a lot of people. If you have already been on a tour or you're going on a tour, make sure that you meet with as many PIs. These are going to be the principal investigators, or basically your bosses. Make sure you meet as many of these people as you can before you get to the university, so that way you can get a sense of what they're like as a person. And make sure that you also talk to current grad students in their group, so that way you get the real inside scoop on who they are, what they care about, and what they're like as a boss, because they are going to be your mentors for the next 5 or so years. These people are going to basically make or break your experience as a PhD student. There are some PIs who are really, really nice on the surface, but their groups are a total mess. Sometimes the PI looks like they have everything together. They're amazing at all of the research that they do, but they're complete jerks, and they'll basically monopolize your time. They'll tell you exactly what to do, and if you don't do it, they'll get really upset with you. They'll make you work weekends. There's a lot of things that kind of go into this, so just make sure that you are aware of who your PI is before you start, so that way when you do start, you have a solid foundation for choosing the right one, so that way you don't completely hate your life as you're moving through this process. All right, now, number 8, be prepared to work over 40 hours per week. This is something that really is irregardless of PI. It doesn't matter if you are a person who gets a great PI or you're a person who gets a nightmare PI. You are going to be working over 40 hours a week a lot. There are going to be times when you'll work less than that, but there are definitely going to be times when you're going to work more than that, especially if you're in science and you're doing cutting-edge, groundbreaking research. Over the past month and a half, I've probably worked about 560 hours, and that was because I was doing groundbreaking research at Brookhaven National Laboratory using new parameters that nobody has ever done at the synchrotron, and this required tons of safety approval, tons of experimental planning, lots and lots and lots of design and meetings and other things like that. You are going to be pushed to your limits a lot of the time, and it's up to you to be able to handle that and to be able to balance all of your tasks efficiently. So make sure that you are prepared to work more than the average person, because there are definitely going to be times where the amount of work that needs to get done cannot get done in a simple 40-hour work week. All right, now on to number 9. Make sure that you are prepared to watch all of your friends go into jobs that seem glamorous and amazing and be making significantly more money than you are for working way less hours than you work. This is something that for a lot of people I feel is something that's very overlooked, and it's something that nobody really talks about. Your friends from college are going to be going to jobs in business, in academia. They're going to be going to jobs in science, whatever field it is that they got a degree in, they're going to be going into fields like that, and they're going to be making way more money than you are, and they're going to be working less hours because they work for a traditional boss. They don't have all of the obligations that you have as a graduate student. So just make sure that you are prepared to watch all of your friends basically outperform you in terms of the money that they make and the job satisfaction it seems that they enjoy. But be aware that what you're doing is something that not a lot of people do, and when you're out of this stage of your life and you're moving on into the next stage, you're going to be in a bit of a better position than they were when they started because of all of the experience that you've gained. You've done research that nobody else has done, you've made discoveries that nobody else has made, and you've got publications and other things like that. You've met with leading scientists, leading experts from around the world, and that type of experience is something that you really don't get unless you do a PhD. So just be aware that that is going to be something that will challenge you, and it will make you sort of question why you're doing what you're doing, but just be sure to stick with it if it's what you truly want. My final point, number 10, is to take care of yourself through this entire process. It's so easy to put your personal well-being on the back burner and to basically make it so that you feel miserable getting up every day because your body is failing you, you've been moving too much, you've been doing too much, you haven't been getting enough sleep, you haven't been eating enough. These types of things are real. They do happen when you're a grad student, and it's really important that you make sure that you take the time to take care of yourself, because your PI is going to push you to get things done, but that isn't always something that you need to do right away. There are things that you need to get done right away, and there's things that can wait a little bit. So you definitely need to be able to have good time management skills and to be able to prioritize things based on their urgency. If you don't have these skills, make sure that you build them before you get into this, because it's going to help you out a lot, and it's really going to save your life, honestly. As a bonus, just make sure that this is actually what you really want. A lot of people don't talk about this enough. Honestly, have a sit down with yourself, have a sit down with your friends, with your family. Talk about your goals, what you want out of this, why you want to do this, and have that solid foundation so that way whenever something hard comes along, whenever you're feeling very challenged and discouraged, you can look back to all of the discussions that you had with your mentors, with your friends, with your family, and it'll help to keep you going. If you don't have this, it's going to be very easy for you to say, man, why did I even start this? I'm sick of this, I'm going to be leaving. And that could be a really bad decision. And if you don't make the time to do this, you could end up regretting it really badly in the end. So just make sure that you know why you're doing what you're doing before you get started. And with that being said, this has been my top 10 things that nobody tells you before starting grad school. Please remember to drop me a like, leave me a comment down below. I love talking with you guys, and subscribe for more content just like this, or tech reviews, or anything else really. I do a lot of content from a variety of different topics. So if that interests you, please feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.